Well, it is 10 o'clock. Nobody is here, but I'm going to hold the meeting anyway because this is going to be some very important information that I need to share with you. Um, Let me share my screen here. I have, this time I am sharing, excuse me, sorry, I'm sharing my screen. Let me do that and then I can talk. There we go. Um, Made notes for myself. This way I can stay focused and not go off on tangents, which will help you. And speaking of helping you, if you're obviously if you're watching this, you're not with me right now online because no one is, so you are watching the video. In that case, since this is on YouTube, you can look down at the bottom of the screen and there's a little gear icon that allows you to speed up the video. So feel free to speed this up. Before I get into it, I will remind you that you can get extra credit for watching these videos. To do that, I'm going to be providing you with attendance words or attendance phrases throughout this video. So to claim the extra credit, you will need to send me an email with all those attendance words or attendance phrases. And in addition to that, you will need to ask me at least one question about the material I presented in this meeting. Even if you think you understood everything, that's okay. Just come up with a question. It provides evidence that you paid attention to the video. Anyway, that being said, let's get started with that. The first word for attendance is going to be meeting. Meeting, like you see here, I highlighted that word on the screen. That is the first word for attendance. So again, at the end of this, you're going to send me one email with the whole list of words, and that's the first one. So let's jump into this very quickly. I want to mention or remind you, I posted this announcement. First of all, I want to remind you to read the announcements regularly. Anyway, I'm offering extra credit to do assignments early. So if you look at this announcement, right? If you submit a lab on a Monday or earlier, you get 10 points of extra credit, 8 points for a Tuesday, 6 points for a Wednesday, 4 points for Thursday, 2 points for a Friday. Anything over the weekend, you won't get any extra credit. For the discussion replies, so not the initial discussion, but for the replies, assuming you didn't get 0 credit, which I'll discuss here in a second, you'll get 3 points if you do it on a Wednesday or earlier, 2 points if you do it on a Thursday, and 1 point if you do it on a Friday, and no extra credit points if you do it over the weekend. The point, what I'm trying to do here is, most people turn things in over the weekend, and then I have a rush. I'm in a rush to grade them on a Monday, which means I don't provide any feedback, and you don't have much of a chance to, fix your mistakes. So the sooner you do it, the better. And now I'm incentivizing you to do that. Late work. If you look at the syllabus officially, and I mentioned this before, I'm mentioning it again, officially, late work is not accepted, right? Officially, if you turn something in late, it's just a 0, right? Unofficially, I'm saying go ahead and do it. I cannot guarantee that I'll have time to grade it, but I guarantee I'll try. And usually it's not an issue, right? So for example, as I'm about to say, a lot of you missed the first quiz and the first exam. Actually, I'll use a different example. If you didn't do lab 2, for example, it's past due now. But if you do it and you turn it in, I don't know, today or tomorrow, for example, I can almost guarantee you I'll have time to grade it. But the reason I have that caveat of, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to grade it is because, if half of the students wait until the last weekend of the class and turn in, 10 late assignments all at once, then I'm not going to have time to grade that. So, again, turn in late work if you need to. There will be a deduction. The later you turn it in, the more that will be deducted. Yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Exam 1. I haven't even had a chance to really look at all the results yet, but I did see that there were a lot of zeros. A lot of people just didn't even do the exam. Regardless if you did it or not, I have now reopened it. Well, once I'm done with this meeting, I'm going to go in there and change the settings. I'm going to open it up. You can now retake the exam. You can take it as many times as you want. The retake will be open book. You can take it as many times as you want. It's untimed. The only catch is you have to email me when you're done, right? So once you're satisfied with your new grade, you need to email me. Otherwise, I have no way of knowing that you've redone it. And so once you email me, I'll go in there and I'll average your first grade with your highest grade. So for some of you who didn't do the exam, your first grade is a 0. So, the highest you can get, like, let's say you do take the exam and get a 100%, well, that's going to average out to a 50. But a 50 is much better than a 0. So anyway, yes, do those retakes, please. The final exam is based on the first 3 exams. So even if you had a good grade, it's not going to hurt you to retake these exams, but it'll be good practice to help you with the final exam. If for some odd reason you retake it and your grade is lower than it was to begin with, then just won't adjust your grade and you can keep your original higher grade. So there's nothing to lose. This offer closes when exam 2 closes, right? So not this week, but next week. So next week, you will no longer be allowed to retake exam 1. At that point, you will then be allowed to meet me online, and I will then give you all the correct answers, right? So we can talk about all the questions you missed. I can give you the correct answers. So then you can prepare for the final exam, because again, just because we're done with exam 1 doesn't mean we're really done with it, right? You're going to need to know that information for the final exam. So I will meet you online, give you all the correct answers, and give you a 5% boost to that grade, which is the case for any assignment, right? Any assignment that you meet me online for to get feedback, I'll give you a 5% boost to the grade. The only catch here, another thing to note is when you go to look at your grades, because I'm reopening it, you won't be able to see your grade unless you click on it. And I wish somebody was online with me right now, and I would ask them to volunteer to share the screen to show what it looks like. It looks different on my end because I'm the professor, so I can't show you. But yeah, when you go to look at your grade for the exam, it will not show up unless you click on it, right? Click on where it says exam 1, then it'll show you your attempts and it'll show you how many questions you missed, so on and so forth. All right. If you have any questions about exam 1, let me know. The next word for attendance, and look at the screen here. The next word for attendance is tell me what word am I highlighting right now. That is the next word for attendance. Anyway, let's move on. That's it for exam 1. So like I said, a lot of people didn't even take exam 1. And I looked, and the same thing can be said for the quizzes. A lot of people haven't even taken the first or the second quiz. It is past due. I've kept them open, right? So you can still go in there and take them, even people who've already taken them. You can still go in there and take them. It's good practice to help you prepare for the exam. But I've locked the grades. So just like the exam 1, if you retake quiz 1 or quiz 2, then you have to email me and tell me so I can go in there and adjust your grade. Otherwise, it'll stay where it's at, right? So feel free, again, to go back and retake exam 1 and, retake quiz 1 and quiz 2. Or for some of you, just take it in the first place, right? Some of you have not taken it. So just, again, take it and let me know when you're done. Moving forward, I'll remind you, these quizzes are unlimited, right? You can take them as many times as you want. So in theory, there's no reason why you shouldn't have 100%, right? Just keep taking it until you get 100%. And that's it for the quizzes. And again, I'll remind you, just like everything else, if you meet me online for feedback on these quizzes, you can get a 5% boost to your grade. Obviously, that does not count if you have a 100%, because there's nothing to tell you, right? You got all the questions right, so there's really no feedback when it comes to quizzes. That's not the same for labs, but I'll talk about that in a second. So anyway, if you have any questions about the quizzes, let me know. As always, you have 1 quiz per week. So quiz 3 is due at the end of the week, right? It's due on Sunday. Oh yeah, one thing, I should have put this up a little bit above, but I'm not done grading everything for module 2. So after I post this video, let me just say this. I will let you know in a course announcement when I am done grading everything from module 2. So if you can, please refrain from asking any questions about your grades until I've posted that I'm done grading it. One common mistake that I get a lot is students asking me about their discussion points, their discussion grade. They go, why didn't I get full credit? And then turns out I haven't even graded all their discussions yet. So please hold off until I say I'm done grading everything from module 2. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Speaking of discussions, I want to say a few things. First of all, it's very important to me that I'm fair and equal, right? I don't want anybody getting any special treatment. That being said, for some students, if I like, depending on like when they submit their discussions and when I get around to grading it, if I have time, I will leave feedback, right? And say, hey, you know, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. But that's only if time permits. So I just don't want you to think it's unfair. For example, if you saw that I gave someone else feedback and then you didn't get full credit and I didn't leave any feedback, that's just because I just don't have time. Or it could be that I've already given a lot of feedback on a particular mistake and that you made the same mistake. So at a certain point, I just quit repeating myself. So yeah, I strive to be fair. Make sure to, you know, if you have the time, you should look over your classmates' discussions before you post your own. See the feedback I've left. Get some, you know, learn from their mistakes and their successes. As always, and this is the biggest mistake still, I don't know how, but you have to use sources and you have to use them properly. I'm not going to go into that. There's a link to this in every discussion where it says sources. Just click the link and read about it. You have to use sources. There's many reasons. I mean, you're in college now, first of all, so you should be using sources. And second of all, to just be completely honest with you, AI is very bad at using sources. So this is just another reason. And I've always had this rule even before AI was a thing. But yeah, you have to properly use sources. Every single fact in your paper needs to be substantiated with a source. That being said, I also want to point this out. I am very picky for the first two modules because I want to make sure that the students know exactly what I expect of them. But now moving forward, if I'm being honest, I'm actually going to be a little bit less picky, generally speaking, because now I figure since you've gone through two modules of me being extremely picky, and you should at this point know what I expect. If I'm being honest, if I'm rushing to get things graded, then yeah, I might just glance over your discussions, and I might not check every single link that you shared. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to let you know that. Speaking specifically about Module 2, which we just finished, some people lost points for this. You're supposed to provide an advantage and a disadvantage to the idea, right? So if you are replying to someone and they had an idea like, hey, we should, I don't know, use vertical farming to increase the carrying capacity, then when you reply to that, your advantage and disadvantage should be specifically about vertical farming, not the general idea of increasing carrying capacity. So that was a mistake I saw a lot. Another mistake that I've warned this last week, people were listing more than one advantage and more than one disadvantage. I know this probably sounds counterintuitive, right? It sounds like you went above and beyond, and that's a good thing. And usually it would be. But in this case, since your classmates are required to reply to your post with an advantage and disadvantage, and the more advantages and disadvantages you list, the fewer opportunities your classmates have. So that's why I had that rule. A lot of people lost points for this. The prompt clearly stated that you needed to define population growth and you needed to define carrying capacity, right? So that was a big mistake that I saw. And I think that was the biggest things I saw for discussion too. And again, I still have a lot of grading to do, so there might be some more stuff. I don't know. But anyway, again, if you have any questions about the grade that you received on Module 2, once I've announced that I'm done grading everything, please let me know. I would love to give you feedback. Also, I make mistakes, right? So sometimes you might meet me online and say, hey, you know, can you give me feedback? Why didn't I not get full credit? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I'll give you those points back. But either way, even if I didn't make a mistake, then you can learn from your mistakes, right? And you can understand why I grade the way I grade. And as always, if you meet me online to get feedback for any assignment, you'll get a 5% boost to that grade. Even if you got 100% on your well, I guess I can't really do that, but yeah, never mind. So yes, you can meet me online for a 5% boost. If you have any questions about the discussion 2, let me know. I'll get into discussion 3 later, but right now I'm still talking about Module 2, which is what we finished. Speaking of which, Lab 2, there weren't any big mistakes that I can think of. Again, I still have a lot of grading to do. I will remind everybody of this. When you are watching a video and answering questions while you're watching the video, one of the first questions is always, what's your name and what course are you in? Make sure you use the correct course number. Make sure you use your full name, because sometimes when I go in there to look at the results, I might be searching 108-2, right? Because that's your course number. So if you didn't do that, and I'm going through and grading everything from 108-2, then I'm not going to see that you did it, and you'll get a 0. So that's just good advice for everything. As always, even though we're done with the lab, you can resubmit it with corrections, including the correction of not doing it. So for those of you who just didn't do the lab, go ahead and do it. Like I mentioned earlier, better late than never. As always, again, you can meet me online, get a 5% boost to your grade. Even I'll go ahead and say this, maybe even if you got a 100%, like of the full 25 points, you can still meet me online. Depending on your situation, you also might get a 5% boost, because a lot of times for labs, people will write something that's incorrect, but I don't take points away from it, because this is a 100 level class. So sometimes I'm not that picky. Also, just so you know, and I've mentioned this before, I'm also a lot more lenient. So when people turn in things on a Monday, for example, and it's not due until a Friday or until Sunday, sometimes I will just let some things go and not mark it wrong because they turned it in so early. And again, just to be completely honest with you, this also helps me prevent cheating. Because if that person turned in a lab on a Monday and got a 100%, and then they let their buddy copy it, and their buddy turns it in on a Saturday, but again, the first time I didn't mark something wrong, well, probably will mark it wrong to the person who turned it in on Saturday. Anyway, that's that. If you didn't get full credit, there's 2 videos at the end of the worksheet that you can do. And again, even though we're past lab 2, you can still go back and do that. Watch those 2 videos and answer those questions, and I can add those points to your grade. And really quickly, and I know I've said this before, sorry, I just want to show you how I do extra credit again. So let's say there was, 30 questions in a lab, right? And then you did, and you missed 2, right? So you got 28 out of 30, which is a 93%, right? But let's say you did a lab that, again, had 30 questions, but then you did a video, extra credit, that had 15 questions in it, right? So now we're talking about out of total 15 more points. So out of a total of 45. And like I said, you missed 2 points. So that's 43 out of 45, which is then a 95%. So that's how extra credit works. It's not like I'm straight up adding those points to your grade. It's more like I'm adding it to the possible points, the total possible points of the lab. So as always, extra credit's not a game changer. It's not meant to be, but it is there to boost your grade. Anyway, if you have any questions about lab 2, let me know. That's it for my module 2 stuff. We're done talking about what's in the past. Now let's look forward. This is lab 3, right? Lab 3 is all about ecological footprints. And what I'm about to tell you is based on mistakes people often make and mistakes I've seen in the past. First of all, I want to point out that there's a video to watch. So if you look at this, and that's a little bit different than normal. This time you're not filling out a form. You're just watching the video, and you're going to answer these questions as you watch the video. It's pretty straightforward. Not much to say about that. Now, let's talk about some other stuff. First of all, I want to point out that the U.S. footprint, the average American has a larger footprint than the average person on Earth. Therefore, your answer should reflect this. Specifically, this question right here. First is saying, do you think your average is the same or smaller or larger than the world average? So let me make this very clear. If you think that your footprint is the same or smaller than the world average, then for sure it's going to be smaller than the US average. By definition, it would have to be smaller. And this is where people usually lose points. Likewise, if you think your footprint is the same or larger than the US average, then by definition, it would have to be much larger than the world average. So make sure you don't mess that up. The other thing I want to note is this, where are we at here? Questions 13 through 15 should reflect your answers to the first 2 questions. So again, here, these first 2 questions are, you're telling me, do you think your footprint is larger, smaller, or the same than the world average and the US average? Then you're going to get specific, right? So this question asks, like, specifically, how big do you think your footprint is, as in the number of Earths, right? And you can read all about this. I don't want to waste your time watching this video, but Again, if you think, for example, your average is smaller than the US average and larger than the world average, that means, right? So it should be somewhere between the world average and the US average, using that as an example. Here, I've given you the world average, which is 1.71, and I've given you the US average, which is 4.94. So again, if you think your average is somewhere between the world average and the US average, then your number should be between 1.71 and 4.94. Another example is if you think you're about the same as the US average, then your number should be about the same as the US average. Same thing with this. It's the same question, except now instead of looking at your footprint as in how many Earths do we need, it's asking how much land do we need, right? So the average human on Earth was 1.51. And for the US citizen, it was 7.46, right? So your answer to this question should reflect your answers to questions 11 and 12. I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Time is valuable, so I will move forward. You will need 2 screenshots. So what you're going to do after you write your hypotheses here is you're going to go to this website right here, and you're going to answer a bunch of questions, right? Click on that, and you're going to answer a bunch of questions. Now, once you're done answering those questions, they're going to give you results. I'll show you here. So this is what it looks like, and this is, you can see this. There's a click, or excuse me, there's a link. You can look at it. This is what it's going to look like, right? Of course, your numbers are going to be a little bit different, but this is what I want to see, right? This is the first screenshot that you need that gives you your results. And then you can see here, there's a little button, right? So even though it gives you results, you hit this little button to the right, this little orange button, and that gives you other results, which I can show you. That's going to be right here, right? So you need a second screenshot. And again, this is what it looks like, right? So that's how that works. If you have any questions, let me know. Another thing I want to mention, I'll back that up, is this extra credit. Like I said, when you go to answer these questions, you can just like say, you can make it nice and easy, like, oh yeah, this is how often I eat animal-based products. Or some of them offer you this option where you can click on it to add more details. So if you do this, I'll give you extra credit. You'll have to prove you did it by providing the screenshots. And just to be clear, if you provide the screenshots that prove you did the extra credit, you still need to provide the screenshots that I showed you earlier, right? The screenshots that show your results. 1, that provides proof that you did it. And 2, I will then be comparing your results to your answers, right? So if you say, for example, that your Earth overshoot day was on April 13th, then I will look at your screenshot and make sure that it's correct. Another thing I want to point out too, and this is another common mistake, after you put these screenshots and now I'm asking you questions about your results, these are 3-part questions, right? So make sure you answer 3 parts. And also another common mistake I see, was your hypothesis correct or incorrect? Correct or incorrect? Those are your 2 options, correct or incorrect. Sometimes people will answer yes or no, and that's not a yes or no question, right? You're either correct or incorrect. So make sure you let me know. As I've mentioned before in previous labs, I know this is repetitive. Yes, I can go back and look at your hypothesis. But the point here is that so many people lack the ability to reflect on their hypothesis and look at the data and determine if their hypothesis is correct or not. And that is one of the most important things you're going to learn in this course, more so than any of the little details that you're learning that I'm testing you on, right? This ability to be able to look at data and determine if your assumptions are correct or not. This is so important, especially these days. Anyway, move forward. What else? 3-part questions. I mentioned that. Class average. So you have to fill out a table. This is going to come from your data, right? So once you do the calculator and you share that screenshot with me, we're going to know what your ecological footprint is in GHA, right? Like how much land. We're going to know what your ecological footprint is as in the number of Earths that we would need if everybody lived like you. This is going to be from the website, right? So there's a link right here. You can use that website to look up Switzerland's information and put it in there. If you want extra credit, you could highlight that, right click it, insert column left or right, whatever, and add more if you want, right? So the more you add on, the more extra credit you get. And here's the part that I wanted to originally bring up. This is where people screw it up. You need to put in class average. Where can you find the class average? Well, click that link. It brings you up to this right here. You are just going to fill out your name, your GHA, and your number of Earths. And it looks like here somebody made a mistake. James, if you're watching this, I'll get in touch with you. But that seems to be incorrect, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, only fill that out, right? And then you scroll down here, and then here's the averages, right? So this is the number that you're going to put in to that table. So if you were doing it right now, it would be 8.05 and 4.99. But again, that's if you're doing it right now. It'll probably be different by the time you get around to it. So that's it for that. It asks you to do a graph. As always, bar graphs. In this course, the bars should go up and down, not left to right. I'll just leave it at that. Let me know if you have any questions. Questions 30 and 31. After you're done with all this, it asks for your opinion. And it says, all right, think about all the questions that the calculator asked you. And of all those things, do you think anything there should be made illegal and or regulated? Now, don't get stuck on this illegal part. Like a lot of people are like, oh, no, that should all be legal, which is fine. But also think about them regulated, right? So, and the example I always give is, they ask about cars, right? One of the questions asks you about what you drive and things like that. So you might think that miles per gallon should be regulated, right? Maybe you think the government should force auto manufacturers to meet certain MPG requirements. So make sure you don't get stuck on that word illegal. So anyway, that's that question. Like, what do you think should be illegal or regulated? Then this is the opposite. This question is like, of all those things, which do you think should remain legal and remain unregulated? And don't be stupid. One of the answers I see a lot, like one of the questions asked, like if you take a bus. So some people write down here like, oh, I think it should remain legal to take a bus. Well, yeah, I get that. I mean, come on, use some common sense. Like, that's not what I'm asking. No one. It's more like, think about the more controversial things. Like, for example, the question will ask you about how much meat you eat and how much trash that you accumulate, things like that. So use some common sense when you answer that. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Question 32. Again, this is asking like, hey, what's something that individual people could do to lower their ecological footprint, and what is an incentive for them to do it? So that's the part where people usually miss, is the incentive part. Like, so for example, if you say, I think people should eat less meat. Okay, that's a great idea, sure. But then what's the incentive? How would you get people to do it? That's the common mistake I see for question number 32. As always, you don't have to do this alone. I will walk you through step by step every single question in any lab if you want, and like work on it one-on-one with you. I'm happy to do that. Or if you don't have time to do that, as always, take 5 minutes, meet me online. Let me look over any assignment that you have before you submit it. I can give you like the big stuff, like, oh man, you're going to lose a lot of points for this, or man, I won't even be able to grade this, right? So let me look over the big stuff. And again, as always, you can meet me online for feedback afterwards and a 5% boost. Another mistake I've been seeing a lot is you have to save these as a PDF. Always, all labs. So when you're done with it, you go to File, download it as a PDF before you upload it. I've already talked about why. I'm picky for that for a reason, but I won't get into it. You can ask me if you want, or watch the previous videos. All right, we're almost done. Sorry for using so much time. The next word for attendance, I am highlighting it and circling it right now, circling my mouse around it. This is the next word for attendance. So if you're calmly watching this video with your eyes closed, which is fine, I just need you to open your eyes for a second and look at this word that I'm highlighting. That is the next word for attendance. Anyway, let's talk about this week's discussion. As always, I keep saying this, you have to use sources. You have to use them properly. If you don't know what I mean by properly, then meet me online and I'll show you, or you could click this link and read this document right here that tells you all about using sources. And also, don't use AI. Don't use AI to write your papers. Don't use AI to rewrite your papers. And certainly, and I've seen this before, do not copy your classmates, right? So I have seen people, so some people have straight up copy and pasted other people's posts. Other people have copied it and pasted it and changed some words around to make it look like their own. So don't do that. Don't cheat. Anyway, let's talk specifically about this discussion. What you're going to do, like population growth is an issue, right? Not so much in the United States as much as other places, but worldwide, it's an issue. So you can read all about it, about the issue. You can read all about, so when you read the prompt, and I'm not going to waste your time right now, but you can click this if you need more information, and I highly recommend it, right? You can really look at this issue of population growth and how, some of the details of that issue. So what I'm asking in this prompt, in this discussion, is you need to come up with an idea of how to address the issue of worldwide population growth, right? You need to come up with some idea of how you can fix it, or how we can help it, right? And a caveat, and for the sake of grading, I would say please don't do this, but you can, just because I want to make things fair and I don't want people to think I'm trying to persuade anybody politically. So you do have the option of why we should not. But even if you think the government should not be involved, which I fully understand, please, at least for the sake of, this is an academic discussion, right? So you don't have to agree with it. But I want you, if possible, please try to write about what is something the government could do to help fix the problem. And maybe using the word fix isn't even good, because fix indicates that it'll completely fix it and it'll be better. But I'm saying, what's something the government could do that will make it less worse, right? That's what you need to do. I want you to pretend like you're writing to your elected official. In other words, I don't want you to just say, I think there should be a death penalty for speeding, because then we'll have more dead people and the population will go down, and leave it at that, right? Of course, that's an off-the-wall idea. But anyway, I want you to explain, right? You're trying to persuade them. So when you're writing your congressman, right, you're going to explain why the idea is important. Right, why is worldwide population growth an important issue? You explain that. Then again, you're going to provide some kind of idea of what we could do about it. So then try to explain why your idea is important. Why is your idea a good idea, right? And maybe even if you want to talk about some of the limitations, this is a really good idea. I think we should do it. This is why we should do it. But I do have to admit this would be a problem. You can do that too. But again, pretend like you're trying to persuade them. I mentioned all this. Here's some big stuff. This is all right. Mistakes I see people make a lot. We are talking about worldwide population growth, not local population growth. So say, for example, you're writing about how the West Virginia's population is declining, which is a serious issue. But that's not an environmental biology issue for the most part. That's more of an economic issue. But anyway, that doesn't matter, right? When we're talking about the number of humans on Earth, for the most part, it doesn't matter if they're in West Virginia or Maryland, right? For the most part, humans on Earth are humans on Earth. There's some caveats that I will discuss that with you if you want. Meet me, let me know. But for the most part, again, we're talking about worldwide population growth. So this is not the time to get on your soapbox and talk about, I don't know, for example, illegal immigration in the United States, right? Whether you're Republican or Democrat, now's not the time for you to share your views. You can do that if you want in other ways, but for this academic discussion, that's not part of the discussion, right? So I'm not trying to silence your political opinions. I'm just telling you this particular discussion is not the place for it. Another thing, a mistake I see is don't confuse population growth with population size. So for example, and you'll lose points for this. People are like, I'm against population control. We don't need to be killing people. I agree with you. I don't think the government should be killing people either. But that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the population growth, like the rate at which population size grows, which is, as you're going to have to define, population growth is influence, or it's basically just it's a simple equation of births and deaths, right? So yes, you can talk about killing people. You can look at that part of the equation, but you don't have to, right? It could be about births, right? Or births, people being born, right? You could talk about how maybe we could control, or that's the wrong word. I'll get back to that in a second. How we could influence the number of people, children that people are having. And again, you can talk about, like, I don't know, for example, in West Virginia, they're trying to make it illegal for people to drive without motorcycle helmets, right? So that would be influencing population growth, because when people don't have to wear helmets, more people will die. Therefore, the population size would indeed decrease. So again, you can talk about that part of the equation, but you don't have to. Therefore, if when you write about this, you will lose points if you object to this because you say we shouldn't be killing people, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should kill people. Someone else might. So if you reply, like if student A says, hey, yeah, I think we should, I don't know, I think we should euthanize anybody over the age of 50 because they're no longer contributing or whatever, right? You can reply to them and say, hey, I'm against that idea. We shouldn't be killing people just because they turned 50, right? You can do that. But for your initial post, I don't want you to write about how you're against killing people, because I'm not telling you that's I'm not telling you that's an option, right? Anyway, don't confuse that. Another thing, don't confuse the word influence with control. Again, using the same example, the same real life example. If West Virginia makes it legal for people to ride their motorcycles without helmets, that would influence the population growth, because more people would die, right? We're not controlling the population, we're influencing it in that situation. And in that particular case, and a lot of times this is where people get political, like, oh, they're against population control, and that's fine. But no one said anything about population control, right? It can be influencing. Like some people are against the population, against the government interfering in their lives, and that is completely okay. But the point I'm trying to make with this bullet point is sometimes the government could get less involved in your life, but still influence population control. Good grief! I'm reading this. I'm reading that. So I hate not population control, but influencing the population growth rate. So again, your idea could be some things like that, right? If that's the way you think, then come up with some ideas of the way the government can get less involved in your life, yet influence population growth, right? Again, my one example is the helmets, right? So they're providing more freedom to people by saying, hey, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your head. But by doing that, they are influencing the population growth. Anyway, and the last thing, this is a mistake I see a lot. People confuse the word influence with increase. So they'll go on, their initial post would be say something like, I don't think that the government should influence worldwide population growth. And then they go on to describe how the government should influence worldwide population growth. And the reason is they think when they write that sentence, what they're meaning to say is, I don't think the government should increase population growth, right? But instead they say, I don't think the government should influence it. And then again, like I said, then they keep going, and they start by saying they don't think the government should influence the population growth, but then go on to describe how the government should influence the population growth. So don't confuse those two words. That's it. I don't have anything else. I'm kind of sad no one showed up. Again, don't forget you can get extra credit for this. One more thing I want to say about extra credit. Did I say it here? Yes. For even more extra credit, so again, you can email me with these attendance phrases to get extra credit. And even more extra credit, you can go to the Module 3 discussion right here, hit add discussion topic, type extra credit, like that, and then right here, and then summarize everything that I just told you, and you'll get, again, extra credit. Your points will be based on, well, how accurate your summary was, and how useful it is. So for example, if you write down literally everything I just said, like a transcript, that's actually not very helpful, right? Because I would prefer it to be summarized so your classmates can read it and just get the gist of it. But yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else. I guess the last word for attendance is going to be 17. The number 17 is the last word for attendance, and that's it. I hope you have a great week. Please, please, please let me help you. I am here to help.